Good evening, everyone. I am hoping that my audio is good. If it's not, please let me know as soon as possible. Um, I am. So it turns out that there's a volume dial on the condenser for this microphone, and my son had turned it all the way down for whatever reason. I had no idea that the what looks like a button is actually a dial, so in the complete technical failure of yours truly, my volume was off basically last time I tried to do this, which is why there's no live stream from last Saturday when I was trying to do one. But that's okay because we figured it out, I think. And yeah, we'll see. So yeah, it's been one of those weeks. Well, it's what looks like a button is actually a dial. So there's a lag, and that was me you just heard because I'm trying to get the link to put up so people can find me. This week has just been one thing after another thing. Oh, good. Thank you, Julian. Hi, Julian. I wasn't going public with it, but I guess I'm public with it anyway because, so I'm looking for a job. I have kicked the search parameters wide open and have been applying to positions in Texas, Kentucky, Tennessee, places I'd like to go. And it's going to be interesting. We'll see how these things go. I'm looking forward to a change. Yeah. So last weekend, part of the reason I just couldn't deal with the audio dial problem was that I was out of spoons already. Because we were dealing with some household repair issues, like the kitchen sink was leaking badly. And I had been trying to figure out where it was leaking from. Was it leaking from one side, both sides? So, yeah, I was frazzled already, and I just couldn't do another thing. Unfortunately, that seems to be happening to me a lot recently, that I'm just kind of running out of spoons. It's a little bit like the cat pushing things off the counter. I'm like, this is chaotic. This does not please me. Push. Tinkle, tinkle, crash. Okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Hey, Doug. So I've kind of been pushing things off my mental counter recently, which unfortunately has included things like writing. I'm managing to write fiction about once a week for my weekly writing prompt. And this week, the prompt is very visual to me. Little bunny rabbit's excited about the concept of getting to play the Easter bunny. And I think that would make perfectly adorable art, probably a watercolor. So we'll see what happens for me this weekend. The other thing about this weekend is the weekend I'm going to do the taxes. And that is never fun for me. I've already warned my husband what to expect so that he can take shelter as needed. I keep saying I'm going to hire somebody, but every time I've done that, something bad has happened. So maybe I'll just keep doing it myself. But anyhow, I am hoping that my grandmother and my mom made it because both of them said that they really wanted to be here. I will remind them. And we will go on our merry way. Leesville, Julian. So you want me to move to Louisiana? Well, I'd like to stay married, so Louisiana is not on the... He's actually said that Missouri is not off, which is not an awful admission to come from. I don't want to move further north than Ohio for several reasons. Hi, Mom. I don't want to move further north than Ohio for several reasons. One of them is actually Sanford's arthritis. Colder weather would not be good for him. And he's willing to go south with me, but honestly, Kentucky's probably the best bet because that's where both the moms are. Although Northern Tennessee, which I really like Northern Tennessee, so she's tired. Maybe I should move it earlier in the day, although I can't do a whole lot earlier on Fridays because I don't get home. I'm usually home by 5:30, but it's more of a matter of I also like to have that time to kind of wind down and maybe have dinner. So I have figured out the trick to maintaining weight, which is basically skip a meal every day. But it means that I'm really hungry by the time I get to have my meals. So I have been wanting to write more fiction, but when there's bad weather, I won't do dictation in the car. It's not safe. So I've been, even though I've been carrying the dictation kit with me, I've been holding off on actually executing dictation until I'm really, really sure there's not going to be any surprise ice. Yeah, although this year, Mom, moving further south, even into Texas, doesn't seem to have done anyone any good, so maybe? It's going to be interesting because I'll be in Texas at least once this year and probably twice this year. What I'm going to be looking at, among other things, is how the cold snap down in Texas affected their insect population and their plants, because I'm willing to bet that there's going to be a lot of die-off of both. So it'll be interesting to see how the population takes to recover random things. Yes, tea does help. I do tea a lot at work when I'm hungry. I can't snack at my desk. Eating at the desk is now forbidden because of COVID. And that's actually a good thing for me because snacking at my desk means mindless eating. I saw that, Julian. A full week without electricity when you're not geared for it, that's not fun. I mean, I've done long periods without electricity, but that was standard. That was life. And I've done short periods without electricity, and it's never fun, and I don't think I've ever been a full... Okay, well then, there goes that theory. Usually the mosquitoes will at least be suppressed by the freeze. So, I was curious, but I guess it didn't do any good. Up here in Ohio, we're expecting the 17-year cicada hatch this year. And I am both intrigued because I kind of find cicadas cool and not really looking forward to the noise that I hear they generate. The screaming of cicadas was something that I was actually asking people the first time I went to LibertyCon when I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I had to ask, I'm like, what the heck is that noise? Is that cicadas? Because I think it might be, but I've never actually heard it in person. And it was in cicadas. Right. So even down there where you are, Julian, because of the swamps, you have the microclimate is warmer than it might be elsewhere, just the sheer water mass. And you won't have been cold enough to do extensive freezing. Yes. I'll have to look at where the 17-year brood is hatching out, but I think down into Tennessee and over as far as Georgia for the 17-year brood. So it might be an interesting year, Rom. I know I'm going to have to take a look and see if there's something I can do to protect. I've got some baby fruit trees in the backyard. And the problem with moving is that we have some stuff to do here in the house, a couple of minor repair stuff. And I have to prune my library again. I'm not looking forward to that. But Sanford has made it clear that I have too many books. If we're going to move, either pick a spot, stay here, we can have all the books, or if we're going to move, the books need to go smaller. So I'm going to have to figure out what I can live without. And hi, Grandma. Yeah, sorting through my books, weeding my collection is always a trick. I've actually done it professionally. I weeded the entire library collection when I worked as a children's librarian. They asked me to do that, and so I wound up weeding I basically worked from the children's collection through the teen collection, and then up the adult selection was upstairs. Yes, Julian, I am wearing murder needles and a set of charms that I made. These are, it's a little astronaut and spaceship. Whoop. I'm really bad at aiming into my camera. With a little star and black for the night sky. I call them my Major Tom set. And these black murder needles are great because they go with everything. And they're a little long. I have to be careful which murder needles I wear, because sometimes at work I have to gown, which includes putting on a hairnet. And if I'm wearing longer murder needles, it gets really tricky to put a hairnet on over that. So I actually have a short pair, which isn't within arm's reach, or I'd show it off. Yeah, the astronauts are adorable. And then there's a little spaceship with rhinestones. It makes a super cute set. They didn't come together as a set. I bought them so I could pair them this way. I like complementary things like this rather than all matching. So I need to make more charms. Actually, I need to conduct a little market research and figure out what people want, because I need to make some art and sell some art, because there's a couple of things I want to buy. And I don't buy art supplies unless I have sold art to earn my art supplies. It keeps my stash from growing out of control. That might be what I do to my library. So when I moved from New Hampshire here to Ohio, I knew there was no way I was going to be able to transport my entire library down here. So what I did was I sold probably a third to a half of my library. I used Amazon, and I had quite a few books that were worth a fair amount of money. And I used that money to then pay to ship a lot of my library down here to where Sanford was. And I told him that was my dowry. Even when we weren't sure whether or not I would make it down here or stay down here, the library was coming. Because it came down here before I did. So that may be what I do this time as we're getting ready to move again, especially because we don't know where we're going to be. Not glowing skulls, Grandma. That's the candelabra with Edison bulbs, the old-fashioned light bulbs with kind of exposed filaments. I think they're pretty. Sanford says they don't put off enough light, so. But it's got this house. I don't know what the people were thinking when they put some of these things together, because there are multiple places in this house where the lighting is very inadequate. I mean, I'm working off of right now, I've got almost studio lit for this little corner, but there was no light in this corner when I first got the desk set up here. Johan put the desk here because there's a window here where the plant is, and then there's a window behind the laptop where you can't see. So it's actually a really great place for natural light for me to do art. And this desk that I'm using, it's flat right at the moment, but it's a drafting desk, so I can tilt it. Yes, we will probably wind up renting a moving truck. We have talked about stripping down to the bare essentials, getting rid of most of the furniture, but we still have books to move because I have books in the collection I just don't want to get rid of. Now I do have quite a few duplicates at this point. We were talking about Kipling. I have a lot of Kipling duplicates, so I need to take a look at what I have and figure out what's a dupe and get rid of I'll probably keep the oldest Kiplings. I'm not likely to read my paper Kiplings. They're definitely collection pieces. I read an ebook for those kinds of things. And some of what I have, the pulp, is getting brittle. The paper, especially from some of the pulp that's at least 100 years old now, the paper's going. It was never meant to last this long. So reading it would be a bad idea. I'd probably break pages. Oh, that actually is one of the art ideas I'd had. I have some books that are broken. The bindings are shot, or the pages are just literally coming loose from the binding, and there's no value to them to try and repair them. So what I might... Absolutely, Doug. I'll take a look at what I've got and let you know. If it's something you want, I'll send it off to you. I have your address. I have these books that they're not valuable to try and repair them. So what I've done with a couple of books in the past with broken books is I've used them to create art. I've done dragons with wings made out of books. I've had some fun with that. I did a Nero Wolf one. But I'm thinking I've been seeing paintings on old book pages, and that might be fun for me to do. And I was thinking that if I do that, what I'll probably do is pine soot ink, because I can vary it from dark black through hues of gray. And most of the books that I have that are old enough to be broken the pages are sepia toned because they're not acid-free paper. So as long-term works of art, because it's not acid-free paper, and because the ink I have is not super high quality, some of it is, but the pine soot ink I'm thinking of it's a Japanese sumi ink, and I'd be using I have goat hair brushes that I'd be using to paint on it. There's a couple of designs I've been thinking I'd really like to do. There's a crow and a couple of other things. I'm not sure I'd want to put wallpaper in a bathroom. It's wet, but maybe. There's not a lot as far as the old brittle paper, Mom. It's the quality of the paper. That's why it's called pulp fiction. It was literally pulp paper. It was cheap paper. It was meant to be disposable. And so there's not much I can do as the process starts to break it down. I mean, with the books that I consider collectibles, I'm basically trying to handle them minimally. I'm not using them to read, or very limited if I am. And the books that are broken that I'll probably make into art, they're going to be ephemeral art. So there's a couple of different kinds of art, and arts that are done with media that is not light fast, it will fade over the time, is considered an ephemeral. Some of the inks that I like are ephemeral. Different kinds of watercolor paints are ephemeral. They'll fade. Some are more permanent than others. And if I do anything on these with acrylic paints, I'm going to have to look. Acrylic is, I'm still learning with that. I still have some things that I've got to learn in there. One of them is how to properly get them to the consistency that I like, because I'm so used to watercolor and ink, which are very loose. They're wet. So getting acrylic to that point makes it very translucent, and that's kind of not the point of acrylic, so I've got a lot of learning to do. I've debated, I found out just recently there's a little art gallery in the next town over, and they actually teach classes. And even right now during COVID, they've started back up with teaching classes. So I've looked at that because I think that would be a really nice, relaxing thing to do. Go take some classes and learn how to make my art better. And just do something that isn't entirely driven by this needs to make me money. One of my friends was pointing out that I have hobbies, and maybe they should stay hobbies, and then they're less stressful. Well, I mean, and that's the thing too, is that some pigments are super fast and really, really permanent. And there, you can wonder now, looking at some of the cave paintings, if there were paintings that were not, that we've lost the color, or Greek and Roman sculptures were brilliantly painted, and we're most familiar and comfortable with them as white marble, and we interpret through the shadows and the play of light on the stone surface, but that's not how they were originally looked at, which is kind of cool. And I think of that when I'm doing some of what I do, because it won't last. And well, I mean, I started with the most ephemeral art of all. I mean, as a balloon artist, that does not last long, although I was always delighted when I would meet somebody that I'd made a balloon for, and they would tell me or show me a picture of their balloon sculpture that had shrunk down into this little tiny floppy thing, because the balloons themselves will last a long time, but they're porous, so the air slowly goes out. And what's left looks ridiculous, although there's a couple of balloon dog designs that I did that still looked like a little balloon dog, and they were kind of cute. But most of the time, the balloon art a month later was very, very sad looking. It was still fun, though, that people would be like, they loved it so much they had to keep it, and parents would be like, they won't throw it away. So, and that's, I don't know, I guess that's probably the highest compliment I can get as an artist, is that somebody wants to keep my stuff around. And that's the fun thing about the art I'm doing now, is that unlike balloons, it is going to last a little longer. When I'm talking about fading and light fastness, we're talking 20 years in some cases, but it's not considered museum quality because it won't last forever. And then there's other things, some of the natural inks that I've been looking at making, because it would be fun. Those might not last very long at all. And any exposure to sunlight, of course, is just bad stuff for art. As I say, as I look up at, well, okay, that's a print. So I have on the wall over the laptop, I've got a print of a beetle combined with an engine that was done by my drawing professor. I actually bought it from him after I'd taken the drawing class from him. I ran into him with a booth. He was selling art at the local Comic-Con, and I immediately had to buy it because it's beautiful, and also because I was very fond of him. He put up with me being weird in his class. So, making paper is an art all to itself. I mean, if you do a really, really beautiful paper and then just do minimal art on it, it's still a work of beauty in its own self. It would be fun to do paper with some different natural fibers and colors to it. I've thought about that. I probably won't, just because time and space and mess. Maybe, but probably not. Realistically, work is exhausting right now, and I don't know that that'll ever pass. As a friend pointed out to me this week when I was kvetching, I'm not 20 anymore. And I probably shouldn't be trying to work 70 hours a week because, well, that would do bad things to me. Oh, well, it is what it is. I need to write more. I know that. Knowing that and making myself do it are two different things. When I'm tired, the brain just doesn't fire. And I need the brain to spark if I'm going to have the ideas that I need to make a story come to life. And it's like, well, thank you, Julian. It's the lighting. That would be a fun project, Mom. We should do that and maybe have Johan come along and videotape it or something. Get messy. Hi, Sin. How are you? How's Foxy? More to the point. Cynthia's cute little puppy dog, Foxy, had some medical issues, so I'm hoping that Foxy is feeling better. I'm tired but cheerful today. My boss was not at work today. She took the day off. So the entire team was very relaxed, very productive. There's something to be said for not being given contradictory orders every 5 minutes, for getting things done. Yeah, and that's been my problem, is it's art doesn't demand the same brain cells that writing does, which is why I can manage. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear. I will keep looking for pictures. Foxy and her glowing red eyes are always it's always fun. I can write when I'm in the right headspace, and if I work at it, I can get into the headspace, but it takes time. Art is simpler. Plus, my art level tends to be extremely simple, and there's times that I can sit down and execute art in less than 5 minutes. Sin, I sang tenor in high school choir. I believe my voice is technically alto, but I was assigned to sing tenor, and I have sung baritone parts in choir. Of course, my choir teacher also told me I was tone deaf, which I thought for years, and then later I was told I'm not tone deaf, so no idea. But I had to take choir. It was the only music that high school offered, and we were required to have music credits for graduation. So I don't sing in public anymore. I'm nice. I don't do that to people. Yes. It was kind of fun, actually, singing the baritone parts, because it required a lot of, and that might actually be why she thought I was tone deaf, was because my voice, I don't think, is meant to go down quite that low. I used to enjoy singing. It's fun to sing old-fashioned hymns in church. But my sister sings soprano. And yes, my entire family has quiet voices. I have had to get used to loud people in my life from time to time. Sanford is not a loud person, so we're quite well suited there. But there's been times I've worked with people that just had a naturally projection, and it usually takes some getting used to. But I am not musically inclined. I have played instruments. I was never very good at it. I've enjoyed doing it. I still regret that I never was able to master getting anything played on the balalaika, because I loved the idea of it. But whether it was my balalaika or just the fact that it's mostly a men's instrument, my hands would not stretch to all the chords. So, So, Mom, you'll appreciate this. And we were talking about me sorting out the library. This is something I may have to take a look at. I wound up acquiring a couple of old hymnals because I was using hymn lyrics or titles as chapter headings for Possum Creek Massacre. And I had intended to continue that. Sorry, my husband just distracted me by the idea of him working with the troops. Anyhow, I had intended to continue the hymn titles for the next book in the Possum Creek series, which will be Bonsai. And I need to start writing that. So I got a couple of old hymn books at the Dollar Book Swap. And it was one of those things that I'm thinking through, I probably don't need 3 hymnals. I could sort one of those out or 2. So I actually was trained to have a command voice because Civil Air Patrol, and I did drill team. So I found out something when my kids were small, that there's a difference between command voice and yelling. And my children informed me when they were young that they didn't mind me yelling at them, but when I switched over to command voice and went into full drill instructor type stuff, that was scary. So I used it judiciously, not too often, but sometimes when I needed them to stop in their tracks, then that was the command voice came out then. Very, very useful. Oh, I was talking to somebody else about that today. The fact that I did so much drill team that I have literally had people come up to me, veterans, when I was in college. I had people come up to me and ask me what branch I served in because they told me I moved like I had been military. And which always, that's about the time I started preemptively being, I'm not a veteran, I never served, because I had enough people that thought that, yes, dear, I will get rid of all 3 hymnals. The kitten is up on her little perch. I wound up with a cat tree. My coworker's cat is elderly and unable to jump or climb at this point. So I wound up with a cat tree, and the kitten likes it quite a lot. So, because she's still springy and bouncy. The dog, not so much anymore. She's gotten very gray around the muzzle. Yes, my son is pointing out that the dog will climb onto things, including the cat tree, if she's sufficiently motivated. Wet cat food is sufficient motivation. Will she go after the dry food?
Yeah, normally if there's wet food up there, I've seen it emptied and
Yes, my son is saying that the dry food not so much, but the wet food the dog will go for. The dog has climbed up onto several things, and Johan is having to learn just how high he needs to put it so the dog cannot get to it, because the dog thinks that wet cat food is absolutely the best thing in the world. And it gives her gas, really, really bad gas. And she sleeps in our bedroom. Oh. Yes, well, Trixie was literally a street puppy. Sanford brought her home. Well, okay. Sanford never intended to have a dog. Sanford has gotten gray around the muzzle, Julian says. And as Sanford is walking up behind me wearing a shirt that says he's older than dirt, Yes. But we're not planning on putting Trixie down, but she is 9, and she's technically a large dog because she weighs more than 50 pounds, even though she's got short little legs. Our vet has informed us that she's got a large amount of Australian healer in her, which is why the short legs and compact body, she's very dense, very muscular. But as a large dog, that means her max lifespan is probably around 12. So we will keep her as long as we can. But Sanford never intended to have a dog. She was originally, so his girlfriend that he'd been living with had adult children. One of those adult children had a girlfriend who came home with this puppy and said, "Can you guys keep it for a while? My apartment won't let me have a dog, and until I can move, if you can keep the puppy for me, that would be good." Well, 2 weeks goes by, and the girlfriend is no longer together with the child, and Sanford and Lil were stuck with a puppy. And because nobody else would take care of the puppy and take her on walks, that would be Sanford. So Sanford used to take her on really long walks, and she loved long walks, so he became her person, and she's very, very attached to him. There's only one person in the world that she loves better than Sanford, and that's her Uncle Toddy. That dog goes out of her mind when our friend Todd comes over to visit, and it's hilarious to watch. We'll see, Mom. She's had some health issues in the last year or so, and we're both of us farm kids, and there's things that we'll do and things that we won't, and spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a dog that is elderly and failing is probably not something we're going to do. If there's something we can do to make her comfortable when the time comes, then we will. But like we had the incident last year where she wasn't walking at all, and the vet was like, well, she probably has a torn ACL, which she didn't, but we didn't know what else was going on. And surgery for that would be a couple $1,000, but if she can't put her weight on the other leg either, because she wasn't using either, then there's not a lot that can be done. So fortunately, whatever was going on there, muscle relaxants and pain pills, and we were able to get her up so that she could relieve herself. And after a couple of days of that, she was back to herself. The only thing I did after that was she has a preference for drinking out of the toilet because dog. And I made it so that the toilets were off limits because I was afraid that how she was getting up to drink out of the toilet was going to injure her. And so we started making sure that we kept the lids down. And I had banned her from jumping on the bed a couple of years ago because I got really tired of muddy paw prints on my pillow. So she sleeps on the floor now, which she's happy about. Oh, and the couch. The couch is like, that's her spot. We're okay with it. This is what couch covers are for. They can be washed. And so teenagers are not easy on furniture. And at one point I had 3 of them in this house, in the house that we had before this. So we discovered quickly that unless we were spending really good money on furniture, the furniture wasn't lasting very well. And we had something come up where we needed a couch where someone could sleep on it comfortably. So I wound up coming up with a 1970s era pull-out couch. This thing is a tank. And it weighs about as much, too. So we're definitely not moving the couch. The couch goes. I'm not moving that thing. It was enough work just to get it on the truck and in the house. I have been told, because I have not slept on it, that it's actually got a decent pull-out bed in it, and it's relatively comfortable. But it is not a comfortable couch to sit on. Both my son and my husband have made noises at me about getting rid of it now that we have a guest bedroom with a nice comfy bed, and getting a comfy couch. So we may do that. We'll see. I think I'm going to wait until we figure out whether or not we're moving and where we're moving. The times of transition are always rough. It is good with Johan being homeschooled. It'll be fairly easy to move him. And he's actually said that he's comfortable with and happy with the idea of moving. Yes, good quality sofa beds are heavy. This is a good quality sofa bed. It was not expensive because, well, 1970s era. It's as old as I am. It's been through things. Actually, it's in really good shape. It's ugly as sin. I mean, it is that 1970s rough, tweedy, floral pattern. Yeah. It always surprises me how aesthetics change. I'm not a huge fan of some of the modern design choices, but I've always been much more of a fan of just like clean, classic, elegant. One of the pages that I followed for a while on Facebook was, it was wild house listings, and it was like the interiors of houses that just made you look at them and go, what were they thinking with those colors, and good Lord. And there was one recently that was completely purple. Like purple walls, purple ceilings, purple carpet in the bathroom. Carpeted bathrooms and carpeted kitchens are definitely one of those things that make me think that people checked their brains at the door before they made some design choices. Especially with children in the house. Ooh. The microbiologist in me cringes. Mom, I have a cover on the couch, and memory foam isn't going to help. It's the way it's structured. It's very, very upright. Yeah, Julian, that was my thought when I saw it too, was that they had to have been a Prince fan. Because it was that color purple. Oh, it's always entertaining and amusing to look at house listings. One of the things that I was doing as I was starting to seriously consider moving is, I do not remember the purple house, Mom. Oh my gosh. I do remember Uncle Dave's sister, but I don't remember the purple house. As we were considering moving and talking about it, I started to look at house listings because I don't want to move us someplace where we can't afford to live. It's like I was telling Sanford, sometimes you look in these houses and you're like, okay, well, that's pretty much a blank slate. We can work with that. And then I'm looking at some of these houses and I'm like, that's going to cost us as much to make it livable as it is to buy it. There was a nice house, though. One of the ones I looked at in Texas, it was like all this beautiful wood paneling inside. It was really pretty. It hadn't been fully finished. The bathrooms, the listing said, were functional, but they lacked walls, as in there was no green board. So that was definitely one of those of, Well, I mean, if the couch is ugly but it's comfortable, I really don't care. That's what couch covers are for. Besides the need for the couch cover to keep the dog hair down. She has very short hair, and it surprises me how much she sheds, because it's not obvious until you move furniture and there's a dog bunny under there. That's what the Roomba's great for. Chase down all the dog bunnies so I don't have to. Uh, I always think it would be so much nicer and cleaner if I didn't have pets. And my sister doesn't have any pets, allergies. And I'm like, it would be really nice to have that. But then on the other hand, they're kind of nice to have around. Although Inspector Gadget is not a cuddly kitten. And if she is cuddling with you, it's because she's deciding where to bite you. I'm hoping she'll outgrow that, and this is still a kitten thing. Mom, we need to work on your place. I gotta get down there when it gets a little warmer. Oh dear, Grandma. Yes, Ladybug has a very short coat. So does Trixie. Similar coats, I think. Neither of them have any insulation for cold weather. Except Trixie, I don't know about Ladybug, but Trixie would go out and sun herself. When we lived at the little house, when it was just the two of us, Trixie would go out and lay on the black asphalt. It like 90 degrees in full sunshine, and we'd be calling her to come in because we were afraid she was gonna hurt herself. And she wouldn't come in. She was like, I'm fine out here, I'm warm. So we would let her stay out there in sun until she wanted, because she had access to shade and water. And we didn't leave her out very long because we lived in town. So she wasn't, she was on a tether to have access to the backyard. But she couldn't stay out there because she'd start to bark and annoy people. So we'd leave her out for as long as she was quiet. Then she had to come in. But she loved the sun. She loved to be out in the sun. And she'll do that here. She doesn't have access to asphalt. But she'll go and she'll lay on our back deck, which is in the full sun. So that's one of the things I got to work on this year, is putting up the sun sails. I don't know that I want to build a pergola, but I definitely want to put up sun sails so we have some shade out there on the back deck. Otherwise, it's difficult for me to get out there and grill because I burn, because I sunburn so quickly. And it's much less expensive to do the sun sails than it would be to put up a roof or a pergola. But all these little projects, and I've got to do some landscaping. I've let the garden get out of hand the last couple of years, and that's going to need cleaning up if we're going to wind up putting the house on the market anytime in the next little while. We've been talking about it, and we're supposed to have a nice long talk tomorrow. So Sanford and I's idea of a date is not what most people would probably think of. We are going to climb in the car together tomorrow and take off and drive and stop after a couple of hours and have a meal. I already have a spot picked out. One of my coworkers put me on to this, it's like this little roadside mom and pop place, and he says they have bison burgers and elk burgers, and I'm like, ooh, and he said they have venison, and I'm like, yes. So that's our lunch date tomorrow. We are going to drive through country roads and ramble around and stop and have lunch and then ramble some more until we finally come home. Of course, we'll have to pay the teenager tax, which usually is ordering in pizza. So I've got to talk to him too, because he's not supposed to have pizza on his new diet. Oh, so interesting thing that I have learned as we go through things with Johan. There is a breath test for lactose intolerance. The prep for the breath test for lactose intolerance is interesting. I got told today that in order to schedule him, he has to have not had any antibiotics or probiotics, and that includes yogurt, for at least 4 weeks. Well, both of his doctors had made him start taking probiotics every day, so now he had to stop. I'd basically be like, okay, we can't schedule the appointment for 4 weeks because I'm going to have to tell him. So, Mom, he's doing really well. He was very excited. He wanted to tell me today that he has lost 6 pounds. So we still have a bunch of testing to do. We don't have any answers yet, but the new diet, he's liking the fact that he's losing weight. Actually, the tricky thing is going to be that he's supposed to start exercising regularly. And while we have a treadmill, he finds the treadmill noisy and boring. So now I'm trying to come up with ways that will engage him and be exercise. Which might be hauling him out hiking with me. But I'd like to come up with some other ideas too, that don't involve taking him to a gym, because time and distance, there's no gyms anywhere near us, so we'd have to drive at least 20 minutes to get to a gym if there's one open. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. He is feeling better, Mom. The initial thing that got us to go to the doctor this time has subsided, and the doctor sent him to the specialist, who I really, really liked. And he was good with Johan. So that we're still doing the testing to try and figure out more answers. He probably should walk the dog. The problem is that where we live, there's no sidewalks. So he can walk the dog, but our road goes up about a quarter of a mile, and then there's a very busy road. And then the other little road that comes down to the back of our lot is another quarter of a mile. So he can actually walk a lap around the block, so as it were, by walking through our property from front to back and going up the road and back and around. But the busy road makes him nervous, so I'm going to have to talk him into doing that. I think it'll be all right, and I think it depends on the time of day. If he's doing it at a less busy time of day, not when people are coming and going to work, I think he'll be all right. And we have parks with a whole bunch of trails, and the closest one is only about a mile from the house. I've taken him there, and I'll probably introduce him to some of the other trails as it starts to warm up in the next couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about. I was tempted. This week we had a couple of days where it was sunny and in the 50s, and unfortunately I was working late, so I didn't get to take advantage of sunshine. But the ground's still really wet because we did have several inches of snow that are thawing and melting. So I'll drag him out hiking with me, and I need to work with him to get him an exercise regime for here at the house, which may involve exercise videos and Pilates or yoga or something. I don't know. I need to sit down with him and work up a scheme. I've got a couple of books on stretches, and that's probably a good place to start for him. Just get some fluidity going. Yes, I've been told that story. I was told that I had needed to get dressed, and I needed a parent to help me get dressed because toddler. And Mom was either asleep or sick because she was pregnant with one of my sisters. So I got my clothes and I went looking for my dad, and Dad had already left for work. He was working on the Air Force Base. And so I was walking down the road butt naked with my clothes in my hand, and I believe, if I recall correctly, because it's been a while since I heard this story, I should make Mom tell these stories, then a neighbor who knew who I was found me, dressed me, and brought me home. I was an adventuresome child. Yes, adventuresome child.
No yoga.
Okay, my son informs me he won't do yoga. But Sean Veek's videos have adorable puppy dogs in them.
No Pilates.
There's a yoga. There's
They
a
all do.
there's a yoga instructor that I really like because he doesn't do the woo-woo stuff. He talks about the muscle groups and what you're working and why. And I like it's a much more athletic approach to it. But really why I like to watch his videos is he's got this beautiful golden retriever who wanders in and out while he's doing his stretches and exercises. So, well. Well, at least I knew where I lived. That could have been bad. Oh. We look back now at when we were children and we wonder how on earth we made it to adulthood. And then I think about the things that my children have told me that they got up to, and I'm like, how did I miss that? Little stinkers. All right, they're not so little anymore. As my son has informed me that he's an average height for a male since he's 5'8" now. 5'8" and size 14 shoe, so he takes after his mother, and he's a hobbit. I have told him that he's not allowed to grow anymore in the foot department because then I'll have to special order shoes, and that's expensive, and I don't want to. Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea, is to come up with an exercise routine that's different on different days. I have resistance bands. We have some video game exercise things, and I think that might give him something of a routine that's not just one thing. I don't know. His pediatrician said he probably wasn't going to get much taller, which kind of surprised me because his father is 6'2", so he might get taller. I mean, he's almost 16, but boys can continue to grow until they're 21. So I'm going to guess probably at least another couple of inches. And exercise would be good for him. He doesn't do enough exercise. And the doctor told him and me that exercising was going to help with some of the issues that he's having. And routine, regular exercise was the best thing for it. So I would like him to get started on that. Yes, yard work is an important one, and we're going to be doing a lot of it if I'm going to get the yard in shape. So, yes, she does, because this was not the same pediatrician he has. Right now he has, oh my goodness, Julian. 5'20"? Oh, 5'10". I was going to go 5'20". Does that translate to 6'8"? One of the first lab that I worked at after I got out of college, I worked in a food lab for a few months as a lab technician, just as a temp contract worker. And the research microbiologist that also worked in that lab was 6'7". And so I talked to him like this mostly. I liked him. He was like my grandfather's age, and he was fun to talk to, but I couldn't talk to him for very long or I'd get a crick in my neck. 5'10" is better there, Julian, but yeah, size 19, oof. I really hope Johan's feet don't get that big. I mean, I have trouble finding shoes because I usually wear a size 11 women's. Juliet wears a size 12, and it's almost impossible to find ladies' shoes in her size. I mean, you can. If she were any bigger, she'd have real trouble because I don't think they even make a women's size 13 without having to special order it. Julian, that does not surprise me. Did you see the pictures I took a week or so ago Yeti prints in the snow. That was my son running outside barefoot. Well, Dad has scoliosis, so his spine is curved enough that if it were actually straight, he would be much closer to 6 foot or slightly over 6 foot tall. And so Dad's built like a gorilla because his arms are too long for his apparent height, which leads to interesting shirt sizes for him. Yeah. Yes, my son, the Ohio Yeti. I don't know, boys, it seems to be a consistent thing of young males that the cold is not really a factor for them, and they will run around in shorts. Although then again, maybe it's just temperature regulation, because Johan will run around in shorts and a hoodie year round. And in the summer, I'm like, take the hoodie off. And in the winter, I'm like, put long pants on. Of course, this is the kid that we had to get to wear pants. There for a while, the house would resound with cries of "Mas pantalones!" because there were insufficient pants. And then that morphed into, when he was growing so quickly, he kept outgrowing his pants, and I just couldn't keep up with him. And it seemed like every week he'd be like, I don't have any pants that fit me. One of my former coworkers texted me a month or so ago to tell me that one of his sons is now going through that phase and just outgrowing all of his clothes constantly. And he now understands why I was constantly lamenting that my son was just, I couldn't keep him in clothes. Oh. He's almost 16. He's champing at the bit for his driver's license. I don't have much longer, do I? And just like that, it's been a full hour of me rambling at y'all about nothing at all. Nothing of importance. I keep thinking I'm going to, I don't know, talk about current events or something interesting, but then I wind up just nattering on about what's on the top of my mind. I appreciate y'all being there and listening. This is still good for me to talk. I mean, I'm just hearing the sound of my own voice, but speaking out loud is a more intimate feeling than writing the blog. So, and writing the blog is a whole different, I have to be a lot more coherent. Not that I'm incoherent like this, but yeah. Yes. No, I do not want the kitten right now. Thank you. Why, thank you, Juliet. I will take that compliment and run with it. And I will tell Jim you said that. I enjoy listening to Jim and Ian. All right, I'm going to get the kitten whether I want her or not. Ouch. And she promptly bit me. Because kitten. She didn't like being handed to me. She's grumpy. Now she's going to bite me there. Okay, that's enough, kitten. Well, folks, I think I'm going to say goodnight before small fuzzy creature draws blood. And I will see you all next week. Same time, same bat channel.